Hey y'all, we're here at the head of Sequatchie Valley. Welcome to Channel 18 ValleyTV and Gibbs Hometown Insight. This is our grand opening of the head of the Sequatchie. This is become a state park here in Bledsoe County, and what a beautiful place is. You know, back several years ago, TVA came here and they put some dye in up at Grassy Cove and some wood chips. It took the dye and wood chips about 5 or 6 days to come back out through this hole. So that shows that the water that comes from over in Grassy Cove, that creek comes through the mountains and comes out right here. Back in the 70s or 80s, they said a lot of mallard ducks come through this. So there is a cave that goes all the way in between the two. What a beautiful place. You know, we have our Sequatchie Valley that runs up and down the valley all the way to the Tennessee River. This is where it starts. We're glad to have you here on Channel 18 ValleyTV. I hope you enjoy the show today. Check it out. Hey, what's your name?
My name is Brad Smitty. I work with the Cumberland Trail State Park.
Yeah. How long have you been with Cumberland Trail State Park?
I've actually been with the Cumberland Trail State Park for a little bit over a year.
Right.
And I currently work in the administration office out of Cove Lake State Park, which is where our office is. So I've been here about a year.
Right. What kind of stuff? So this is all the stuff that's t-shirts, hats, mugs?
Yeah, we've got t-shirts, hats, mugs. We've got some stuff from our record label, Sandrock Recordings here.
I actually play some of these songs off of this on my radio show in Pikeville, Tennessee on Sunday mornings. I have a country gospel bluegrass show, and I play some of these recordings on my show just about every Sunday.
Well, that's great. We're actually the only state park that has a recording label. And actually next month in November on the 17th in Chattanooga at the Tivoli, we're going to be doing a concert.
Oh wow, what's the date, you know?
It's November 17th of next month, of course, and we're doing a concert, like I said, at the Tivoli in Chattanooga.
Tivoli's a great place.
Yeah, and if you can actually buy tickets on the Tivoli website. So you can go there right now. We also have a Facebook page. It's called at Crossing the Cumberland. So Facebook, Crossing the Cumberland. You can buy tickets there. But yeah, this is our gift shop. Everything goes to benefit the Cumberland Trail.
We need it, don't we?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we're a 300-mile trail we're trying to build, and any support that we can have, like today at Ranger Fest, is great. But yeah.
Well, we got folks here wanting to look at your stuff. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Daryl. All right, thanks.
Hey, I'm Will Kenton from Fort Loudon, Von Orr, Tennessee. Was a British fort during the French and Indian War, about 20 years before the American Revolution. And I think for most of us, we'll see this red coat as the bad guys George Washington fought against. Fort Loudon was in use in a time when George Washington, Ben Franklin, and a lot of the folks that will go on to become known as our founding fathers were very much British and were fighting against the French. In fact, at Fort Loudon, there were soldiers who had fought right beside Washington against the French before they came to build Fort Loudon. This is the uniform of the soldiers with the Independent Company of South Carolina, soldiers stationed at Fort Loudon from 1756 to 1760. And today a shoulder patch tells you what part of the Army you're with. If you see AA, you know that's 82nd Airborne. If you see Screaming Eagle, you know it's 101st Airborne. On the time of Fort Loudon, this green facing and cuff tells you I'm with the Independent Company. I have brought a number of weapons with me today. Now, Fort Loudon is the age of the flintlock. This is the musket that would be used during the time of Fort Loudon. But periodically we'll do a program on the changes in technology leading up to this flintlock. So behind me, I actually start off with the handgun, the first type of gun that was ever made. When this was in use, knights were still wearing armor. The English longbow was a better weapon in a lot of ways. A follow-up shot would be quicker with the longbow, yet this would eventually replace the English longbow. This part is sometimes shaped like the head of a dragon or a lion, and when it spit out that firing shot, it was that much more intimidating. Here I've got the S lever that brings my burning rope, known as slow match, down to set fire to the powder, which would be there on that vent, that touch hole. Powder and shot would be inside, so when the fire made it to the inside, it ignited my main charge and pushed that projectile out. Sometimes this was fired under the arm, but One of the more common ways was actually shoulder mounted, like you see here. The matchlock is essentially the weapon you just saw with the addition of a pan. And that pan would hold black powder. A small hole leads to the inside of the barrel where more powder and shot would be. So when the burning rope ignites the powder, from there it works just like the previous weapon you'd see. But in the time that both of these were used, our powder was stored on a bandolier that hung across my chest. So these pre-measured cartridges filled with black powder are hanging across my chest, and I have a burning rope out in front of me of fire. We would likely all agree that that lacked something in safety. But at that same time, people used flint and steel to make their campfire. That rock, that flint, was hard enough that should you sharpen the edge, it would shave off small pieces of metal. And those small pieces would get so hot they'd burn up the sparks due to the friction. And to make a campfire, I would merely hold my dry, cooked cloth on top of or underneath my flint. When the spark landed in it, that was the beginnings of my fire. They needed this to cook their food. They needed this to stay warm. This is technology that is important as a gun or a knife in the past. So that would actually give way to the flintlock musket from the age of Fort Loudon. So the flint would hit the steel, causing sparks, and at the same time throw the steel forward so your sparks can land down here in your pan. And from there it worked like the earlier ones. Your fire goes through that small hole to the inside. The misfires with this weapon were about 1 misfire out of 7 attempts. Today that wouldn't be good, but in the 18th century that was pretty good. It's not a great close range weapon though. If the enemy's close, if you're my enemy, you could stop me from reloading this. Certainly the weapon could be used as a club, but it's heavy enough that you would not have the strength to be able to continue that for very long. This short sword, this hanger, reaches out farther than my fist, so it's better than using my hands. But in truth, if I pulled this out on the battlefield, a lot of things have gone wrong for me. It's not my weapon of choice. Our enemy, the French, came up with a great solution. You know, the pike, a long spear called a pike would often be used by a second soldier to protect you when the enemy was close. But the French came up with this world's first type of bayonet. And that solves that problem, the plug bayonet. We call it plug because of the way it plugs into the barrel. Bayonet because the first ones were made in Bayonne, France. Now every soldier can carry a musket, and yet you can be your own pikeman when the enemy's close. Yet if my barrel's plugged up, I cannot load or fire my musket. That problem is solved with the invention of this socket bayonet. That hole, that socket, fits on the outside of the barrel, locks down on this bayonet lug, and now I can load and fire with the bayonet on the weapon. You know, when you think about it, this is technology that is older than our nation, but it's still with us today. Changed a little bit in shape, still uses a bayonet lug, though it's in a different place. It's the same basic weapon today that was in use in the 1750s at places like Fort Loudon. If you're interested, I'd be glad to talk about the uniform and equipment. I'd be glad to try to answer questions. It's whatever suits your interest best.
Well, I sure appreciate it.
You're welcome.
How long have you been doing these reenactments?
Me personally, started in May of '97. I've been playing war and building forts and all that stuff. I did for free as a kid ever since.
What got you interested in it? Just the history of America and the weapon history?
I always loved history, and honestly, as a student, I hated school. From at least second grade on through high school, I hated it. Found out later I was dyslexic. I just thought I couldn't read good. I just read slow, but I loved to read. I just never did great in school. I was working construction, and my Father reminded me that I had the GI Bill working for me. It'd be foolish not to try it. For him more than anything, I said, well, I'll give it a year. If I'd known there was such a thing as a semester, I would have said semester. I says, I'll give it a year and I'll try, but after that I'm going to the feed yards out west or back to construction. Couldn't believe it. You know, I could get up at 4 or 5 and take a bunch of history classes, loved it. And then I looked at what you can do with a history degree. I'd worked outside most of my life. The idea of teaching school or being in a courtroom was appalling. I found out that if you minored in Parks and Recreation, majored in history, you could use history but be outside, kind of bring it to life, what we call living history on a regular basis. And to me, I could not imagine a job in the world that had a greater appeal than that. Right. To get to live that history and share it with others. But it all started from me loving history and not really liking too much else in school at that time. Now that changed as I got older, but that's what led me to Fort Loudon.
So you're a park ranger now, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Well, talking from one dyslexic to another, I'm be 59 years old in January. I learned how to read 7 years ago.
Wow. I
went through school and graduated at Bellevue High School in Nashville, Tennessee with A's and B's with not being able to learn how to read or write. Wow. I did not know how. And been running a very successful swimming pool company for many, many years. Now my sons have took it over, but I know exactly what you're talking about because I really didn't know what I wanted to do either. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up because we have a lot of people out there that have this problem.
Yes.
And in the 60s, from when I was born, they had no clue what dyslexic meant.
Right.
And so now what I read is with a tablet or something under what I'm reading, and it makes it, it fixes it right up.
Yes.
I love what you're doing here. I love that you're a state park guy. How long have you been doing this for the state park?
About 20 years.
20 years.
I started as a seasonal in '97 and got the full-time job in '99, and it's been a real blessing. Most of the time, if I have a bad day, I can figure exactly what I did that caused that.
That's right.
It's hard not to enjoy this.
Yeah, and I love weapons. That's just something that I've always enjoyed, and it's been where you go hunting with my kids. They're all grown now, but it's just a lot of. But the thing that they would have brought up this valley in your time period, would they have been around in this area?
Well, Fort Loudon, when it was in use, that was the first English-speaking settlement in what's now Tennessee. It was way past the frontier and deep into the wilderness. Certainly there were traders coming past this. We know that South Carolina had traders much further west amongst the Chickasaw even. But they had rifled weapons in this age. But today you will sometimes hear people, when talking about modern weaponry, they'll talk about a shotgun firing slugs as the poor man's rifle. Mm-hmm. In the sense that exists in the colonial age. If you can only afford one weapon, you get the smoothbore. Because this firing a larger ball is kind of like today's slug. But if you're hunting small game, say quail, you can fire smaller shot akin to today's bird shot, and it's a more universal weapon. So many of your settlers, many of your traders would carry a smoothbore in this age. Rifled weapons existed, but for the most part, I think it's fair to say, if you could only carry one weapon, if you could only afford one weapon, you were better served, in most cases, with a smoothbore.
What year was it that they came up with a rifled bore?
I forget the year exactly, but I want to say that dates back to maybe as far back as the 1500s. It was very much a long time before the age of Fort Loudon. There's a documentary out there that will put it in the mid 1800s. Mm-hmm. That is completely false. I mean, it was in use long before the age of Fort Loudon.
So how many years would it have been from Fort Loudon to, say, Plymouth Rock or in that era?
Well, Fort Loudon starts in 1756. It was in use from 1756 to 1760. So, with Plymouth, I want to say, what's that, I want to say you're looking back at the 1600s there, but
Yeah, I think 16 something. I love history, but I'm not a history buff and that kind of stuff. But
yes, sir.
there's a plaque about 6 miles from Plymouth Rock. I'm a Gibbs, and my ancestors landed a ship right there, and there's a plaque there with Walter Gibbs on that plaque, and I'm kind of proud of that. I've seen the plaque; it's in brass.
Yes, sir.
And it's pretty neat that we can go back and see our history, our family history tree, if you will.
Absolutely.
And, so I'm proud to have that in our history.
You may have Fort Leyden ties as well, as there was a Sergeant Gibbs at Fort Leyden.
I'll need to look into that.
Yes,
That's
sir.
my big brother's just loving and digging into that kind of stuff. So we'll definitely look into that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you. Appreciate it.
And good luck on your procedure you're going to have here in a few weeks. I know it's going to be fine.
Well, thank you.
I'll be praying for you.
Well, thank you so much.
You be blessed. Thank you.
You too, sir. Pleasure meeting you.
Hey, this is Reverend Darrell Gibbs. You're on Channel 18 Valley TV and Gibbs Hometown Insight. What's your name, son?
Isaiah Knowles.
Isaiah, man, we've been doing some good video together.
Yes, we have.
It's been a lot of fun. What is the name of your company?
IOK Drone Photography.
How can they get a hold of you?
Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram.
Wow, we sure appreciate you videotaping for us here at Channel 18.
No problem.
And the
We're gonna get some
program. We're
great
going to have some
shots.
really great shots, haven't we?
Some very great shots.
Man, I'm excited. Let's take a look.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go. We're going to go where man can't go. You know that we're not allowed to go down into the Devil's Step, but this drone can go down in there for us and take a look at it. Let's see what we can find.
Oh yeah, some great shots there. Look at that.
Wow, how beautiful is that?
Beautiful blue water.
You can see why the Cherokee Indians love this place so much. You know, I've heard that they were here up until just a very few years ago.
And they have some beautiful paintings and stuff in there.
Yeah, they have some beautiful paintings. We're going to try to get some pictures from the University of Tennessee to show you some pictures of the drawings that are inside there, the artwork.
Unfortunately, we can't fly all the way in there.
Unfortunately,
It'll lose GPS, but
We don't want to lose our drone.
we get to the mouth of the cave at least. And I'm thinking that's it down there. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think it's straight forward where you're shooting your pan right there. Panning the shot.
Yeah, I mean,
And you wouldn't know it if it lost GPS until it was too late, right? It would
possibly.
just,
Which
yeah.
I can see it right now. That's why I have to stand up. I want to watch it because it may drift. So,
And so what it would do if it was losing GPS is start yammering
would
back
start
and forth,
drifting a little bit,
or
yeah.
dropping, or trying to come up.
possibly side to side, and then it might would hit a wall or something. So,
Right.
yeah, I want to keep an eye on it and keep it from doing that. But yeah, we're getting there.
That's a pretty cool shot. I'm pretty sure nobody's ever got that shot from here at Devil's Step.
Yeah, probably not.
This is a brand new state park. You know, the state of Tennessee has took this area over here in Bledsoe County, and sooner or later, they've got about 100 miles left to do. They're going to have a hiking trail through Bledsoe County all the way up through the Cumberland Gap, all the way through the Smokies. You'll be able to leave this park right here, leave your car here, and go to the Smoky Mountains in about a couple of weeks walk. And I guess all the way to North Carolina, as far as I understand, and Virginia, and all the way up into, all the way up the mountains and all the way across the hills up here in Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. And I'm not sure if it goes to Washington or not, but I'm thinking they're gonna make it bigger and bigger and bigger as time progresses, because what they're doing is people are donating land to be able to keep this going. So we're excited about our Bledsoe County having something like this to increase our people coming in and seeing our beautiful, great state. Wow, that was close.
It's hot space. But yeah, we got some great shots there, so the video will be coming.
We sure appreciate you flying your drone for us.
No problem.
And I appreciate the video you've been doing for us, and I appreciate
Great
the what you've done down there for the the festival last week. That was great, man. What a great video that is.
That was a great video. Yes,
We appreciate it. All right,
No
let's
problem.
check it out. Let's go see some more stuff here at the head of the valley.